LSU signee from last month's early national signing period in wide receiver Corey Barber has been upgraded from a 4 to a 5-star in the final edition of the Rivals 300 list. Plus, we take a look at what LSU baseball will look like on the pitcher's mound in 2026. Welcome to a brand new edition of the Babin on the Bayou show. I'm your host, as always, Justin Babin Jr. It is indeed Hump Day, Wednesday, January 27th. 2026, officially episode 13 of the Babin on the Bayou show. I thank you folks so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. Hope you're having a phenomenal week and having a great Wednesday. Let's get into the show. So, the latest news on the LSU football front is, again, LSU signed wide receiver Corey Barber in last month's high school early national signing period. He was a 4-star on the Rivals 300 list, but he took a big leap on the final Rivals 300 list that was released yesterday, the final one for the 2026 class. And Corey Barber saw the biggest jump of any recruit probably, and it's because this list that came out yesterday from Rivals took into account as far as what recruits did in their senior seasons and what they've done so far. What they've done in postseason All-Star game performances as well. And so LSU wide receiver Corey Barber saw a big jump going up from a 4 to a 5-star. In the previous Rivals 300 list, he was ranked as the 151st overall prospect and the 21st best wide receiver in America, but he made the big jump inside the top 30 overall prospects on the brand new Rivals 300 list that came out yesterday. So he's a top 30 overall prospect in the nation, and he is now the number 4 wide receiver in the 2026 class. And really, when you look at it, Barber had a standout senior season playing high school football in Alabama. In his senior year, he caught 68 passes for over 1,100 receiving yards and 14 touchdowns on his way to a state championship appearance playing high school football in Alabama. And according to Rivals, he was the absolute best player by far in the Alabama-Mississippi All-Star game that Barber participated in. He was the best player by far. Barber is 6'1", 180 pounds. He's a really versatile player. Rivals really likes his potential in a Lane Kiffin style of offense because of how versatile Barber is. And then he can impact the game in many ways. He's a really great athlete. He's also a really highly competitive player. So Corey Barber's a guy to pay attention to as far as 5-star wide receiver, a top 5 wide receiver in the nation in the latest Rivals 300 list. He was originally committed to Ole Miss, but he backed off his Ole Miss commitment once Lane Kiffin left the Rebels and came to the Tigers, and eventually Barber flipped his commitment to LSU to join Lane Kiffin, Charlie Weiss Jr., and the offensive staff that recruited Barber while they were still at Ole Miss. So Barber is definitely a guy you're going to want to pay attention to in the next couple of years for LSU. LSU did add 2 other freshman wide receivers in Braden Allen and Jabari Mack. Both of those guys are from the state of Louisiana. We talked about this early national signing class that LSU got, how it was defensively heavy in terms of star power, especially on the defensive line. When you got guys like the number 1 player in the country and Lamar Brown, who's probably going to be an edge rusher for you, at least to start out his college career. The number 1 defensive tackle in the country in Richard Anderson, another top defensive tackle in the country in Deuce Gerald's, one of the top edge rushers in the country in Trent Henderson. But you did add a guy like Barber, who's a top 5 receiver in the nation, had a great standout senior season and playing high school football in Alabama, and he's a guy to definitely look out for, along with Jabari Mack and Braden Allen. And you add those 3 freshman receivers onto, we already talked about it, right? Your receiver room is going to be loaded for 2026. Look at all the portal talent you brought in between, guys like Jace Brown, Trey Brown, Eugene Wilson, Jackson Harris, Winston Watkins Jr., all of those guys you brought in are going to compete. It's going to be highly competitive for those 3 wide receiver spots. I said it before. I think you have 5 guys competing for 3 spots between all of these guys have talent between Jace Brown, Trey Brown, Winston Watkins, Jackson Harris, and Eugene Wilson. All of those guys are going to compete. I think the best guy out of that bunch and the chance to be the best wide receiver 1 for you in 2026 is Jace Brown when he transferred over from Kansas State after putting up close to 2,000 total yards in 3 seasons as a Kansas State Wildcat. But I've talked about it before. I really love your receiver room. I love it for the future. I think it's stacked. I think it's loaded, and you have a ton of talent and a ton of depth in this year's receiver room. So it's going to be one of the position battles to look at. Obviously, when you look at other position battles that you're going to have to pay attention to leading up to September and all of that, I think wide receiver is going to be a position to look out for. I also will have my eye personally on the battle between Gabe Relaford and Jordan Ross for the starting edge rusher spot opposite Prince William Monmielen. That's going to be something to pay attention to. I talked about last week the 4 safeties in Deshaun Spears, Tamarcus Cooley, Ty Benefield, and Fahim Delane. I think they're all going to get some action, and they all can find a role and a way to contribute for this LSU team. I feel like you're really stacked as far as depth in the safety room as well. And then on the offensive line, of course, you have 2 positions filled. Braylon Moore at center, Jordan Seaton at left tackle. I think Aluba is going to get one of the starting guard spots. That's what I think because he started 23 consecutive games at guard for the University of Maryland. So he has a lot of experience in Big Ten play. He's 6'6", 327 pounds, and he's a pretty good pass protector. So if I had to pencil it in right now, I think as far as on the offensive line, you're going to want to pay attention to the battle for the starting tackle spot opposite Jordan Seaton and the starting guard spot opposite Aluba. That's at least what I think right now. But this roster is loaded. We've talked about it before, and I wanted to preview or at least talk about Corey Barber because him getting upgraded from a 4 to a 5-star just shows you how deep this wide receiver room even is beyond all of the portal talent that you brought in. All right, let me take the time to tell you about our wonderful daily sponsors here at the Babin on the Bayou Show and the team over at Shield Heating and Cooling. And I've talked about it before, but the team at Shield Heating and Cooling has decades of experience as experts in the AC industry. I love my audience. I love you guys. I appreciate you from the bottom of my heart for tuning into the show. I want to express my gratitude and reward you for it. So if you call the team over at Shield Heating and Cooling today at the number 225-46-BAYOU. That's 225-46-BAYOU. BAYOU. You call the great team at Shield Heating and Cooling today at that number, and I'll be giving away free AC system clean-in checks for every AC system in your home, whether that's 1 AC system or 4 or 5 AC systems in your home. You call the trustworthy, reliable, the best team in the business today in Shield Heating and Cooling at the number 225-46-BAYOU. BAYOU. You call them at that number today. Tell them you heard about them from the Babin on the Bayou Show. I'm giving away completely free to you, saving you money, free AC system cleaning checks for every AC system in your home. I hope you'll take a part in this giveaway. So call the team at Shield Heating and Cooling today and take a part in this giveaway as an extension of a show of my gratitude towards you guys for tuning into the show. Again, that number is 225-46-BAYOU, BAYOU, and that's Shield Heating and Cooling, your local comfort defenders. And we sure do love and appreciate them for being the title sponsors of the Babin on the Bayou Show. All right, let's move over to some LSU baseball talk. So we talked a little bit Monday and Tuesday we talked about the outfield on Monday. We talked a little bit about the catcher position with Cade Arambidi and Omar Cerna Jr. on Tuesday. Let's move over to the mound. We're not going to cover everything as far as pitching. Again, we have a few weeks until opening day, and we're trying to carve out a segment in the show each day to talk a little bit about LSU baseball. So look, I'll start today by saying there's a ton of talent and depth on this pitching staff. That's what stands out to me. There's a lot of depth, but the roles for this pitching staff are not yet defined. Outside of Kason Evans, the returning LSU sophomore, who is going to be the Friday night guy, the Friday night ace for this baseball team to start the season after a phenomenal freshman year. But outside of Kason Evans being your Friday night ace, your Friday night starter, these guys don't really have much roles carved out for them yet. And obviously that's what, the 4 weeks of non-conference play is for. You're playing lesser teams mostly. You're trying to figure out, okay, what guys can we put as far as who are going to be our 3 starters, who are going to be the guys we rely on in conference play out of the bullpen, and stuff like that, right? So when we look at that, outside of Kason Evans being the Friday night guy, we don't really know. If I had to take a guess right now, as far as the 2 starting spots behind Kason Evans, I would say it's a good shot that Cooper Moore, the Kansas transfer, Cooper Moore, he was the ace for Kansas last season. He's got a good shot at taking one of those weekend starting roles. And then maybe a guy like Zach Cowan, who's returning, or William Schmidt. We'll see something out of William Schmidt as well. But I'd say right now, definitely Kason Evans, probably Cooper Moore as the Kansas transfer, and then probably maybe Zach Cowan, at least to start the season with his veteran experience. However, Jay Johnson, when he met with the media last week, we've been talking about a few takeaways I had. He talked about 2 pitchers in particular, and I thought his conversation about them were really intriguing. And it's 2 guys coming off of freshman years in 2025 where they did contribute, but they had their ups and downs as far as freshmen. And the 2 guys I want to talk about today are William Schmidt and Maverick Rizzi. So these guys, they're both powerful right-handers. They have plenty of stuff. They're flamethrowers that can touch 100 with their fastball. And when you look at it, let's start with Maverick Rizzi. So Maverick Rizzi actually led LSU in appearances in 2025. He didn't allow a run in 3 NCAA tournament game appearances. So Rizzi is obviously a guy, when Jay Johnson talks about him, Jay Johnson trusts Maverick Rizzi. He really likes the stuff out of Maverick Rizzi, and it's hard not to. He's similar to Chase Shores in the fact that he's very tall. He's very tall and stuff like that, and he's a flamethrower. I believe both Chase Shores and Maverick Rizzi are like 6'9", 6'10", really tall guys that really, especially have the high heat that they use to effectiveness. So he had some good outings for sure, Rizzi did, as a freshman in 2025. But on the flip side, he did have an ERA of 7 in SEC conference play, and he gave up 9 walks and 12 hits in 9 innings. So look, Jay Johnson's quote last week in his time with the media said, Rizzi should be the most confident player on the roster with the physical ability that he has. So, as I said before, obviously Jay Johnson really likes the stuff Maverick Rizzi has, and, improving from the offseason, from freshman year to sophomore year, taking that time in the offseason to improve. Rizzi absolutely has plenty of stuff. I believe he can be a dominant force in the bullpen if he puts it all together. He could be the closer this year for this LSU team if he puts it all together. I really like the stuff that Maverick Rizzi has. It's just about getting consistency. Coach Johnson also talked about how Rizzi has done some really good work in the weight room with strength coach Chris Martin over the offseason. He's moving down the mound better, according to Jay Johnson as well. So Maverick Rizzi is a guy I'll be paying attention to for sure. And then you move over to LSU sophomore William Schmidt. And William Schmidt was a very highly touted guy coming out of Catholic high school in Baton Rouge. And he also, like Rizzi, had some positives, a lot of positives as a freshman in 2025, but he also had some negatives. So on the positive, Schmidt had a 7-0 record in 2025. Some of his best games were he struck out 7 in 4 innings against North Dakota State, who was a regional team. He also struck out 8 without allowing a hit in 4 innings at Nichols as well. But on the other side, when Schmidt struggled as a freshman in 2025, it was command. For example, he walked 11 batters in just 2 innings of SEC play. 11 batters walked in 2 innings of conference play is showing that he really, really struggled with command. He really, really struggled to throw strikes. And look, I like Rizzy. I like the stuff. I mean, plenty of stuff. A real flamethrower in William Schmidt with a really great fastball. He's also got a great slider as well with a really high spin rate also. So I like William Schmidt. I like the stuff, but his command for a lot of the season was not good as a freshman in 2025. If he can figure out the command, if he can learn to throw strikes and miss the zone less, he can be a guy who potentially steps into a starter role. I mean, that's obviously what William Schmidt wants to do. I see Rizzy more as if Rizzy excels, Rizzy's gonna be your closer. If Schmidt excels, he could be your Sunday starter potentially for 2026. And look, I mean, we saw the jump from Cade Anderson, right? And I'm not trying to compare William Schmidt or Maverick Rizzy to Cade Anderson, but Cade Anderson, as a freshman, had a lot of midweek starts. He had some good outings, like when he struck out 13 at Southeastern. He also struggled a little bit. Cade Anderson did his freshman year in 2024 in SEC play. He improved over the offseason, became the ace for you as a sophomore, and he ended up being a top 3 pick in the MLB draft with how good Cade Anderson was. I mean, he was dominant. He and Anthony Ianson in 2025 were probably the best 1-2 punch I've ever seen at LSU from a starting pitcher perspective. And that we saw that jump from Cade Anderson. And I'm hoping guys like Schmidt and guys like Rizzy can take that jump. I mean, they're both flamethrowers. They both have a ton of potential. It's just about establishing consistency, about learning. So Schmidt and Rizzy are 2 guys where if they improve and if they have command and if they're more consistent, they have the stuff to be real key contributors on this LSU pitching staff in 2026. We're going to talk about more of the pitching staff later. We'll talk about all the transfers. We'll talk about all of that. But I did want to at least talk about 2 pitchers today that stood out to me, because Jay Johnson said some really good things about them in the media day last week as far as their improvement in the offseason and what they've worked on. A few more things before we get out of here. 2 more things before we get out of here real quick. It is disgraceful that Bill Belichick is not a first ballot NFL Hall of Famer. This news came out yesterday. It was one of the trending topics on X, Twitter. Patrick Mahomes posted about it. LeBron James. Every NFL football player basically ever commented on it and said, what are we doing? Bill Belichick won 6 Super Bowl titles as a head coach with the New England Patriots. And I get the argument, and I've heard this from guys like Skip Bayless was on X yesterday saying this is why Belichick's not a first ballot Hall of Famer, which is insane, right? The argument is that the Patriots dynasty was carried by Tom Brady. That's the argument. I don't agree with that. I think, well, of course, Tom Brady's the GOAT. Obviously, we get all of that. But Phil Jackson had Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant. Phil Jackson had Michael Jordan and won six NBA titles with Michael Jordan. He had Kobe Bryant and won some titles with Kobe Bryant. Nobody talks about, oh, well, Phil Jackson was carried by Kobe Bryant. Phil Jackson was carried by Michael Jordan. Why is it that Bill Belichick is carried by Tom Brady? I don't agree with that. The dude won 6 Super Bowl titles. And if you don't know, to be a first ballot Hall of Famer, I believe there were 5 people they were discussing on the list to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. There's a group of 50 people that meet in a room and vote, and you have to get 40 out of the 50 people to vote for you, and Bill Belichick did not get 40 out of the 50 votes. So the 10 people who didn't vote for Bill Belichick probably shouldn't have that job anymore. They probably shouldn't be on that committee anymore. I know it's not LSU, but it's like occasionally we see ridiculousness in sports. That's probably the most ridiculous thing I've seen this week. How is Bill Belichick, a guy who might just be the greatest head coach in NFL history with what he's done, winning 6 Super Bowls with the Patriots? I mean, how he's not a first ballot NFL Hall of Famer? That's crazy to me. And then the last thing I wanted to touch on was that LSU men's basketball, we talked about it. They're 1-6 in SEC play. They're really struggling. You know, we knew last week was going to be brutal with 2 road games against 2 top 20 teams in the country. At Florida, at Arkansas, we knew that. But now you play 2 teams who are entering, 2 teams in Mississippi State tonight and South Carolina who are both 2-5 in SEC play. So if you have any chance, you got to win these 2. You got to win these next 2. And it starts tonight, Wednesday night, in the PMAC at 6 p.m. LSU hosting Mississippi State. Look, you have DJ Thomas back. He performed well against Arkansas. Like I said, I thought you played pretty well against Arkansas, against a top 20 team in the country. I mean, you led that game for 26 out of the 40 minutes of game time. You led that game, and I believe DJ Thomas finished with 18 points and 5 assists. So he looks to be improved and getting back healthier and practicing more. Having him back is a real help. But again, if you have any hope, you got to win these next 2. If you don't win these next 2, it's probably over. It is over if you don't win these next 2, because Mississippi State tonight and South Carolina on Saturday are not 2 of the best teams in the SEC. They're towards the bottom half of the SEC in terms of talent. So that is something to look at. Again, the Tigers men's basketball plays tonight at 6 p.m. in the PMAC against Mississippi State. But that is all I have for the show today. I thank you fine folks for tuning into the show. I really do appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. Remember, like the video, share the video, tell your friends about the Babin on the Bayou show. Subscribe to the YouTube channel if you're not already subscribed. I thank you folks so much for tuning in. Remember, God bless, go Tigers, and have a great one.